Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the June 2021 Argo CD and Argo Rollouts community meeting. I'm your host for today, Jesse Suin. I'm a principal engineer at Intuit and one of the maintainers of the Argo project. And the agenda for today is that we'll be talking about notifications and more specifically the Argo Rollouts notification support that's upcoming in the next release. And the engine or the library behind that, which is Argo Proj notification engine, that is also what's powering Argo CD notifications. And then Alex will talk about how this is actually a generic library that you can incorporate into your own projects, or write a mini controller to add support for other um, CRs or even native Kubernetes kinds that you want notifications on. Just a reminder that these meetings are being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. With that, we'll start with the Argo rollouts notifications. Karina, are you prepared to present?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and start sharing?
So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So hi everyone, my name is Karina Hirani. I am a software engineer at Intuit and I work on the Argo Rollouts team. Today I'm going to be discussing the notifications feature I created for Argo Rollouts along with my colleagues Hari Rangali and Alex M. So for Argo rollouts notifications, the rollouts controller is continuously monitoring the rollouts in a cluster. And it provides a flexible way to notify users about important changes in the rollout state. It uses a flexible mechanism of triggers and templates, and these are used to configure when the notification should be sent and also what the notification content should be. So like Jesse mentioned, the rollouts uh, notification feature is powered by the notifications engine, which is a general project that powers a unified notification experience for all the different Argo projects. So the notification engine integrates with many different messaging services, such as Slack, email, and custom webhooks, just to name a few. So you can send notifications to any of these services, and you are able to configure the message format and authentication info, which I will go over soon. And Alex will also go into more detail about the general notification engine project later in the meeting. So for notification subscriptions, basically for each individual rollout, you can subscribe to triggers by adding annotations in a rollout object. So this allows for fine-grained subscriptions because for each individual rollout object, you can subscribe to as many or as few notifications as you want. So for configuration, the rollouts notifications includes a lot of useful built-in triggers and templates that correspond to regular rollout lifecycle events, and you are free to use these. Right now, we have them for a handful of lifecycle events, and this is the file that contains all of the built-in triggers. So right now, we have them for the lifecycle events on rollout completed, on rollout step completed for Canary, on rollout updated, and on replica, on scaling replica set. And for each one of these triggers, there is a template defined that formats notification messages. So each template contains kind of special formatting um, for the notification message, and it also formats, um, based on the notification service. Like it has a bunch of Slack attachments and it has some stuff for email. So you can install this and you can have these default notifications available. And you can also create custom notifications. So custom notifications, you can configure your own custom notifications just based on your own personal use cases and your own environment. So I'll go over a simple example of that soon. But for configuration, there is a config map object in called Argo Rollouts notification config map. This is where triggers and templates are defined. So this is where you can define custom triggers. It's where you can override config for built-in triggers. And this is meant to be managed by the administrator. And you can also, this is also where you configure the integration with notification services. So this is where you would put the authentication information for the different messaging services. In this example, this integrates with Slack, so it references a Slack token. And the Slack token is in this secret called Argo Rollouts notification secret. And for subscriptions, they have to adhere to a specific format too. They always go underneath the annotation label in the rollout, and the subscription annotation will contain the trigger name, the notification service name, and the list of recipients. So in this example here, the annotation subscribes to these two Slack channels, to notifications about rollout canary step completion. So when you are creating custom notifications, these are also defined in the config map Argo Rollouts notification config map. So for templates, templates are stateless functions. These are what creates the content of the notification. They're reusable, they can be referenced by multiple triggers, and they also have access to the rollout object in the recipient. So when the message is being formatted, it can reference the rollout and use fields in the rollout to format the message. So in this particular example, it's called My Purple Template, and the message says rollout has a purple image, and it sends this notification through Slack, and it has some custom configuration that's specific to Slack. And for the trigger, for creating a custom trigger, a trigger is basically, you have to define a condition when the notification should be sent. So that includes the trigger name, it includes a condition, and it also includes a reference to a notification template. So the condition is an expression. And if the expression evaluates as true, then the notification is sent. So in this example, it's a trigger called on purple. It references my purple template, which we went over up here. And it triggers on the condition when the rollout container image is purple. So each trigger can reference multiple templates, and typically each template is responsible for a service-specific notification. So just to go over all the components we just discussed, like, and how they work together. So if this is your cluster, here you have a bunch of rollouts running with subscriptions defined in the annotations. And you also have a config map in your Argo rollouts namespace, which defines triggers and templates. And you also have a secret with the notification service authentication info. And then the rollout controller is constantly watching the rollouts for change in state. And when the rollout state matches one of its trigger subscriptions, it sends a notification to the notification service configured in the triggers template, and it uses the notification engine to do so. So I'm going to give a quick demo just to show you how this all works. So on the right side over here, I have a graphical interface called Argo Dashboard, and it lets me see all the different rollouts that are running in the cluster. So I have this one rollout called Rollout Canary. And so here is the manifest for that. And I have a couple of subscriptions defined in my annotations. So I am subscribed to this inbuilt notification called on rollout step completed. and that will send a message to this Slack channel called Argo Project Deployment Notifications. I'm also subscribed to this custom notification that we went over in the documentation example called On Purple, and this also sends a Slack message here. And here is the config map I have. This is the exact same thing as the example as well, but I have a Slack token configured. I have a trigger for On Purple here, and I also have the template. Okay, so for this example, my rollout is currently running an image called blue. And for demo purposes, this means that all the traffic going to this rollout is blue. And these steps here, I need to go through all, or the rollout needs to go through all these canary steps before it can complete the traffic switch. So I'm going to change the image of the rollout to green. And you can see that it's starting to go through these steps here. And if I look at Slack, I see a Slack notification that tells me rollout canary step 1 out of 8 has been completed. So I'm going to, and you can see on the left that some of the bubbles have changed to green. So I am going to promote this rollout, which unpauses it and makes it go through the rest of the steps. And in Slack, I can see that I'm starting to be notified about the rest of these canary steps being completed. And over here, more and more of these bubbles are starting to change to green. Okay, now that this seems to be done, I'm going to change the image to purple. And in Slack, you can see I just got this message over here that tells me rollout canary has a purple image. Okay, that's it for the demo. I know these examples are much simpler than you would actually do in real life if you were making your own custom triggers and custom notifications, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to start using notifications and subscriptions and configure it for your own purposes.
Great job. Very clear.
Thanks, Karina. Any questions for Karina? Keep in mind, if you're asking about how to use the notification, Alex might be covering that, or should be covering that in his next presentation. But any questions about rollout notifications? Great. Yeah, it works exactly the same way as Argo CD notifications. That was one of the design goals when we're doing this, so that that you have the same experience for adding notification support for the various projects. And then, so I'll let Alex take it now to actually explain the engine and how you might use this in your own projects or with other custom resources or native kinds in Kubernetes.
I'm ready. All right, so hi everyone, I'm Alex. I also work for Intuit. I'm basically almost 100% focused on Argo CD, and recently I started working on rollouts. And okay, let me start from sharing my screen. Can you confirm, please? You can see my screen. I hope yes. All right. So I prepared a very short demonstration, short presentation, and I'm going to talk about notification engine. I will explain, why you might be interested in it. I will go through some of the features it provides and one more demo for today. And before I jump into details, I want to cover why we think it is important. And here is why. So basically, as JC mentioned, notification engine powers notifications for Argo CD and rollouts. So basically, it's generic, and it's not just generic. I mean, it's not just generic within the Argo ecosystem. we think it's generic in general, and basically it's not specific to Argo approach. And the only dependency it has is Kubernetes. And so in theory, it can be used to implement notifications for any Kubernetes resource. And this presentation is to, try to convince you that it is possible. And I will try to cover, the steps that you would have to do to integrate Engine into your project, and then show its value. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the features that Notification Engine provides. And I think one of the biggest value of the project is that it integrates with multiple notification services out of the box. Here is a list of logos from the maybe most prominent services. So in particular, we have integration with Slack, Microsoft Teams, good old emails, and Telegram, and even some non-text messaging services like Grafana and GitHub. Basically, a notification, it's not necessary just a text message. You can create tags in Grafana dashboard, or you can update commit status in Git. And we have a list of services that people want to integrate to. For example, in the future, we plan to integrate with Jira, ServiceNow, and all kind of DevOps-related integrations that you can imagine. And even today, Engine supports generic webhook-driven notifications. So basically, you can use webhooks, and you can configure an HTTP call to any service that you can imagine. All right, so here is a list of notification services. And the next important feature of the engine is that it's configuration driven. And I will try to explain what exactly we mean by that. So basically, it's not enough to just integrate an engine into a CRD controller. The next step is you really want to make it, you want to customize it and make it aware of triggers that make sense for the Kubernetes resource. And the good part is that there is no need to code to achieve it. Instead, you can leverage configuration. And here I'm going to repeat what kind of Karina demonstrated. So Engine introduces concept of trigger and template. And both of these things can be created using YAML. And I'm going to quickly repeat what it means. So trigger is a simple function that returns true or false. And the input is your resource. And every time when trigger flips from false to true, Engine will send a notification. And that expression can be pretty complex. In the example that I'm going to demonstrate, you will see iterations over list, and you can even enhance it and add your custom functions. Okay, so and once trigger decides that it's time to send a notification, it uses template. And template is nothing but another function. And template is also stateless. As an input, it takes your resource, and it produces basically a bunch of text fields using Golang templating. And that example is the simplest one. It just includes a text of a message, and that message will be used to send notification to Slack, MS Teams, email, but you also can take advantage of advanced features of your notification service. And basically you have an ability to define service-specific fields here. For example, you can define Slack attachments or MS Team actions, or, and that list kind of is very long. And this way you can create kind of rich notifications for a particular service. Okay, and hopefully that all makes sense. So basically, you can leverage configuration in any project, and you can make your integration very custom for the notification, for Kubernetes resource. And finally, what we see is another value of the project is that basically it's very friendly to your end users. And I have to step back again and just explain what do we mean by end users. So in real life, basically every Kubernetes controller has two kind of persons who work with it: administrators and end users. So administrators are typically a platform team that work on, for organization and run Kubernetes clusters and install add-ons into that cluster that makes the cluster useful. And the example is, Argo Rollouts. It's, usually maintained by a centralized team, and that team can go ahead and work on creating the triggers and notifications that make sense for the whole organization. And then the next kind of, engineers are developers who create instances of Rollout, or in this particular example, this is Argo CD application. So, and developers, they're not really willing to spend a lot of time into configuration. You don't want to force each and every developer in your org to learn yet another tool and configuration syntaxes. And basically that's why in notification engine project, we decided to simplify experience of end users, and we give them a very simple way to just leverage pre-configured triggers and templates. And to, leverage means they can just subscribe to existing trigger. And this is how subscription looks like. And yeah, frankly, Karina covered it already very well. So this particular example shows that shows an annotation that creates a subscription for Argo application and sends messages to 2 Slack channels every time when app sync is successful. That's it. I think enough of demonstration explanations, and I'm going to do one more demo. And that demonstration is, because engine is a library. So basically the best way to demonstrate a library is to use it. And if you, decide to do the demo yourself, you can just use these steps. And I'm going to show you how you can use engine to create notifications for the cert manager. And for those who don't know, cert manager is an awesome open source project, and it lets you create certificates. And basically, unlikely we're going to ever see rich notification support in the cert manager itself. And the reason is because, the main focus of cert manager is managing certificates. And that's why I think this demonstration is very kind of powerful. We can show how you can get really well, very high quality notification support in a project like cert manager. Okay, so I already completed some of the steps, but let me go through them really quick. So basically, to run the demonstration, you would have to clone a notification engine repository, which contains an example that integrates with the cert manager. Next, we're going to just change directory into the cloned repository. And next, let me start executing the steps. Next, we're going to apply a configuration that is specific to cert manager. So let me apply it and show you. Okay, it's slow for some reason. Show you what exactly I applied. Yeah, so this is the YAML file that contains a config map, and it has a trigger and template. So a trigger is a little bit more complex than something we showed recently. So basically, it checks every certificate and then iterate through certificate conditions and search for condition that is ready and status is true. And that's enough to say that your certificate is ready. And yeah, next part is pretty simple. I think I should not repeat it yet. So it's just going to send a simple notification with a message about that includes trigger name. Next, we need to integrate. We need to create Slack. We need to configure integration with a real Slack service, and I'm not going to explain how exactly you can get Slack token, but a long story short is you need to create Slack application and eventually use the Slack user interface to create a token. And then finally, you need to create a secret and put Slack token into the sum key of that secret. And then finally, reference that secret in the config map using dollar as a preference, as a prefix. Yeah, and we're back to the config map, and basically this part tells to the engine that it's supposed to support Slack integration and use that token to send Slack notifications. Awesome. And that's pretty much it. This is all the configuration you have to do. And finally, to complete the demonstration, you just need to run the controller, and let me run it, demonstrate that it works, and then we'll jump into the code, and I will try to convince you that it was really easy to create that controller. So I'm going to run my controller, and here, yeah, the heads up is that basically, in addition to controller, of course, you need to have a cluster that has cert manager installed and the certificate. And I just started my controller. And before I switch to Slack, I want to show you that I do have a certificate. So here's my cert in the cluster. And it's a certificate of our demo Argo CD environment. But the main point is that certificate was successfully provisioned, and it has condition ready and status is true. So that means controller should have noticed it, and it should have sent a notification. And let me switch to our demo Slack, and it did happen. So like basically 1 minute ago, we received a notification about certificate. So that means it's working. That's great. And yeah, let me stop controller. And the main goal of that presentation is to show you what does it take to create that controller. And I'm going to share that link with you later on as well. But here is the small README file that explains how you can create this particular controller. And I want to jump straight into the code and show you that basically it's just one file, main.go, and it consists of 100 lines of Golang code, which is not so much for Golang. And if you're familiar with Kubernetes and you know how to create controllers, you will recognize a lot of that code because it's a boilerplate required to just to create a Kubernetes client, get the current namespace from kubeconfig, and finally, this is the core of the integration. Basically, you just need to explain to the engine which config map you want to use, which secret, and what object you want to make available in your triggers and templates. So in this particular example, I'm just saying that, yeah, I use this and these names for config map and secret. And then for each and every object, I want to make my certs available under the name, under the variable named cert. And okay, and the final next 3 lines is basically I need to specify group version and the kind of my resource. And that's it, pretty much. This is the only code that you need to understand, and the rest of it is Kubernetes that I hope you already know. All right, and yeah, so that's pretty much it. That concludes the demonstration, and there is not much to explain about this particular controller, which is good. That was the goal of the project. And yeah, before I finish my demonstration, I want to make sure you have some materials when it ends. So basically, this is a bunch of links that can help you to get started. Link to the project repository, this presentation, which I will share in the Zoom chat, and finally, the demonstration, which includes instructions about how to build a project and how to use it. So let me put link into chat, and I'm done. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. That was a really great presentation. Any questions that people have for the notification engine for Alex?
More questions?
All right. Yeah. So as you can see, the engine was designed. We took a lot of effort to make sure that this was generic because we knew that we would want to apply this across all the Argo projects. So and that made us realize that it would be useful for any type of project that wanted to add notification support. So we encourage you to try it out in case you are writing controllers and you want things like Slack notifications, and this will be a pretty easy way to get that type of support.
And I feel like it's important. Basically, it takes time to launch this kind of project because we do need to attract more, maintainers of other projects. And I think we committed to continue with Argo, and Argo workflows is next in the queue to get integration with notifications. And the desire is, I think, is to take this short manager example to next level and try to convert it into a real project. And why it's important is as soon as we get more people interested in it, most likely you will see more integrations. As I mentioned, we already have basically 10 integrations and 4 in the queue, like 4 already was requested. And I guess the more integrations we have, the more people are going to want to use it. So, yeah.
All right. So actually, we reached the end of our agenda for today. At this point, we usually open it up for people to raise any of their own issues or any topics that they want to bring up. You're always free to add things to the agenda, bring it up right now, or throughout the coming weeks. You can always edit the Google Doc and propose agenda topics. So if there's no further topics, that will reach the end of this month's meeting. Okay. All right. So looks like we're done. Thank you everyone for coming to the meeting, and we'll see you in a few weeks for the rollout. The workflows meeting.
Thank you. Good job. Great presentations, both. Good
Thank you.
progress.